What is going on, football fans? Welcome into another edition of XFL Chalk Talk. We are brought to you by Top Dog Marketing, where we go beyond the box score, breaking down the latest news in and around the XFL. You can interact with the show on social media, like, subscribe, follow at XFL Chalk Talk, and get the conversation going using hashtag XFL Chalk Talk. My name is Riley Bradshaw alongside Brandon Glessner, Kenny Keller, and back with us, Brandon Pastel. And Brandon Pastel, showing his solidarity to the show, not escaping Hurricane Dorian.
Yep. Yeah, Hurricane Dorian. Category 5 storm, hurricane coming up the East Coast.
It's about to hit you square in the teeth.
Yeah, so tell the listeners where you're located.
Yeah, so right now I'm just east of Savannah, southeast of Savannah, Richmond Hill area. But it's not supposed to hit us until late Wednesday, early Thursday. So I think I got a little bit of time to wait this one.
Have
out.
all your neighbors
right now?
Have all your neighbors gotten out? Is it a permanent evacuation or immediate evacuation?
So yeah, it's a mandatory evacuation that started at 11 o'clock today, and it's supposed to be no later than 12 o'clock tomorrow that everyone's supposed to be gone. Now, we've done 3 hurricanes in the last 3 years here, so I think a lot of people are gonna stay. If I had to guess this time,
ride out the storm.
Hurricanes. Yeah, we're riding out the storm, man. But I don't know. That's dedication right here, man. Me with XFL Chalk Talk. I'm here through any kind of hurricane for you and for the people.
Pastel, tell the listeners what you told me today. You and just go on it, because I was totally surprised by it when you were like, we're putting all of our furniture in the garage. And instantly my mind went to, he's protecting his furniture from the water, but really, why are you locking it away?
Oh, because people will steal that stuff, man. So everyone just leaves the area, or they used to leave the area, and then the people that would stay back saw it as a prime opportunity to come by and steal your crap.
You mean like your patio furniture, or like in your actual house?
No, patio furniture and things like that. So I have furniture in the front, I have rocking chairs in the front, and I've got patio furniture in the back. And so I threw all that stuff in the garage today.
Dude, that's crazy. I would have never thought Richmond Hill is like a big looting area.
Hey, man, every area, they have their people like that. So kind of sucks I have to do that, but other people have had stuff stolen in the past, so I'm not going to try to be the.
But in general, I didn't think of it, right? Like, that's one thing I would never think of. I'd think of packing my stuff and getting out of the way of a Category 3 hurricane. I wouldn't even think about locking my stuff up.
Have you gotten stuff stolen before? Is that why you're doing this?
No, it's just people that I know on the Facebook pages in the neighborhood after the hurricane. They're like, hey, has anyone seen my chair? Did it fly away? Or X, Y, and Z? And you start to get the trend.
Fly away.
I don't think things fly away in hurricanes, but no, we get the point.
Yeah.
Little do they know, it's probably Brandon going around. He's like, "Ooh, I could use this."
We appreciate your commitment, Pastel. You didn't want to miss 2 shows in a row. You missed the last one, which was kind of a biggie because you were off in training. What was it, California? And Team Identities dropped. Of course, we're waiting months and months for Team Identities, and they drop while Pastel is in California. No
desert.
Access to anything. Perfect timing there.
Man.
But Pastel, so we hopped on last week, and we talked about the Team Identities, gave our instant reaction. And since you missed the show, I thought it's only fair if we let you give your take on. You've had some time to digest it. And we've also had some time. So what did you think of the Team Identities when you first saw them? Did you see them like while you were out in California, or were you not like able to access them until you got home? What'd you think?
Well, so I opened my phone and I had about 75 missed text messages from you guys.
That was a big day, man.
Hey, man, that's right.
So I'm going down my phone. I'm like, okay, all right. So I knew the team logos were going to drop, so I'm just waiting for y'all's kind of reaction initially to it. And I saw a lot of the reaction without seeing the pictures. Which I was surprised actually, because a lot of you guys were saying the LA Wildcats were kind of a cool color scheme, cool logo. And the first thing I saw when I saw all the logos is that is by far the worst.
You guys as in like us three?
Yeah, for the most part.
I don't know what podcast were you listening to?
It was the initial reaction.
Well, I think we liked the color scheme. I think was the big part. The logo. I think the biggest thing was the name, right? We just didn't like the name.
Yeah, the Wildcats was bad.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a middle school like logo. And like I looked at some of the shirts already, and it looks like a gym shirt.
Oh,
not a big fan of the
yeah,
Wildcat.
you sent that to us. That looks awful.
right.
But with the black background, those claws kind of look cool. But like on a shirt, yeah, that looks like something like my rival middle school wore.
You know what? If you
And we
look
would
at
make
this-
fun of them for it.
if you look at the
Right.
secondary logo that they came out, they filed the trademark for, it actually looks way better than the primary logo. So I have some faith that the uniforms will work out for the Wildcats.
Which ones did you like, Pascal?
Yeah, so the ones that I did like, just the overall, like when they actually dropped the video on the release, kind of that New York Gotham setting, the New York Guardians, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
And honestly, from the some of the feedback I've gotten over social media, that seems to be a consensus.
Go Guardians.
across the XFL community. Yeah, a lot of people like the logo, the slogan. I mean, one of the things I picked up on it, after watching it was they feed off fear. I love that. They feed off fear.
Hey, they're
But
they're
that
the,
was cool.
they're the
Go ahead.
watchdogs of the metropolis.
Yes.
I actually love I love the logo and the color scheme though, right? The way they use the red as the teeth, like
Yep.
a kind
No,
of a
that's pretty cool.
lion look. I think it's pretty sweet.
They also have like that smokiness to the bottom of the logo. I wonder if they're going to incorporate that into the uniforms as well. Like not all black and silver, but black, a little bit of like gray smoke in their uniforms possibly. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I think we kind of preface all of our takes on like we really have to see how the uniforms look. I mean, that's such a big part of it, because we talked about Tampa. We were pretty harsh on Tampa with the logo and the colors. They're just kind of weird, but I think
didn't
the
like
logo.
that?
You like Tampa?
So, yeah. So I think that was
big
the
time
best color
upset here.
scheme out of everyone.
Is that your favorite?
For a color scheme, like I could see those uniforms. Okay, yeah, they could look very childish, I guess, if they do it wrong. But if they do this right, I think they could have the best uniforms out of everybody.
They need to copy Oregon, especially the two different color greens. Like they need to follow what Oregon does.
They got to have the big black or white being the base of their uniforms, whether it's a black helmet or a white helmet. But if you had all black uniforms with a white outline that makes those greens pop, I think it looks so sweet. It almost looked like an old XFL uniform.
What they should have done is their secondary logo is a viper head, which I think is so much cooler, than just the V. But yeah, we talked about the color scheme and it has potential. But I'm surprised that it's your favorite color scheme. It's kind of a little funky, isn't it?
And they got to do it right, and they got to make sure everyone on the team has a black visor. That would look cool.
Yeah.
That would
Well,
look tight.
one thing I think Glessner brought up, the trademarks. So there were like some leaked trademarks that weren't used, which pissed me off even more. I don't know if they're true or not, but DC Sentinels was one of the damn names.
Oh, I saw that. I was like, man, it was right there for the taking. And I don't know if they did some focus groups and they said, hey, which one you like? Obviously, the people who voted had never seen the replacements before because that would have been the biggest. That would have been the biggest win for the day for the league, I think.
I just don't know how.
Then
how that doesn't happen.
And then they had like the Nitro and the Octane for Houston. I think that would have been pretty cool. I really like the Octane thing. I thought that would have been neat.
Yeah. I was a big
Roughnecks is
fan
cool,
of the
though.
Nitro. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
I
DC
go
is
into
everything.
it, yeah.
DC, everyone's giving crap about the name because Roughnecks is a cool name. DC Defenders is just, other than the alliteration, it's just a very bland name.
Everything about the DC Defenders screams to me create a team in Madden. I don't like it.
Yeah, I kind of think of that superhero feel like the Avengers, the DC comic books and everything. That's what I'm kind of getting from this. Can you imagine if the DC Defenders have a crappy defense though?
Well, that's why I don't like the name. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong. There's so many things that go wrong. If they have a terrible defense, what do you do when the defender's on offense? It's just so confusing. Like, the team is chanting, "Go defense, offense, go!" Like, it just causes so much confusion. And yeah, if their defense is like the worst in the league, which we don't know because there's no players signed.
Yeah. I also think it's like if you look at the New York Guardians and the DC Defenders, like Guardians and Defenders are almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So they almost took the same concept and then just
point.
rebranded it for a different city. So that's why the more I think about it, I thought it was going to grow on me. It still hasn't grown on me. It's not there yet.
I've accepted the colors. I've accepted the logo. I'm behind that. Defenders, it's tough, man. Especially when I see that Sentinels was on the list. It was on the final cut. Because I always thought like, with the replacements, I don't know how that works, like legality wise. But the fact that I see it right there on the freaking paper, in that clump of like 5 names.
I will say this, outside of maybe the DC naming and everything, I thought if you looked at all the other trademark names per city, I think they pretty much made the right choice on all of them. We can make an argument for Sentinels, obviously, but I do think it shows that they made the right choice at the end of the day. Like the LA one wasn't even good. Like the LA Stunners and they had a bunch of other like kind of trash names in LA. I thought Wildcats was for sure the best name they could have gone with out of all the trademarks.
Did anybody catch the Tampa ones? I thought it was the Tampa Bay Predators would have been one. There were a couple others. The Sharks. I actually would have liked to seen the Shark. It would have reminded me of Any Given Sunday.
I was just going to say that. The Orlando Sharks.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
I think Vipers is a cool name, and I think the uniforms have potential, so the colors could be cool. I just don't like the logo. It doesn't work for me. And but I think overall that they did a good job with all of the team identities. I mean, we're nitpicking here. Like, this name could have been this name, but at the end of the day, I don't think any of them are absolutely terrible. You guys may disagree, but I don't think that any of them are like, complete botch jobs.
I don't know. I'm still not a big fan of the Wildcat one.
I don't think any of them are like terrible, but yeah.
Well,
there's some misses.
When you're talking complete botch job, it's like the colors suck, the name sucks, the logo's terrible. So like I like the Wildcats colors. I think they'll look really good in a uniform.
Yeah, some of those concept uniforms that were dropped on the Instagram account, XFL Chalk Talk Instagram. Actually, the concept sketches were pretty nice as far as the uniform goes. So if they can work with something like that, I could see it being okay. I guess I'm just not a big fan of the logo, really.
I think Kenny said this the other day over text message, and he was also tweeting it out this week at XFL Chalk Talk. But he got in a conversation where a guy was complaining about the names and the logos and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, like, it just takes time, right? If you look at like the Las Vegas Golden Knights, right? When that came out, everybody was like, oh, I don't know. It just grows on you. Nobody loves a team name when it first comes out. And it's just a matter of seeing it constantly and it being thrown in front of you. That's just how I see these things.
Think of the names. Think of the teams that we root for right now. Like I root for the Miami Dolphins. I root for a dolphin. Like that's not cool at all. What's cool about a dolphin?
We could do a whole podcast about the Dolphins this year.
Mark that down, Riley.
It's just an example. I don't want to get into it. It's just a freaking example. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Packers. What's a Packer? Okay. I mean, there's names in the NFL that are just like, if you really step back and look at it, like, well, that's kind of dumb. That's not a good name at all. But you're so used to it, and they're teams like the Packers are so prestigious that you don't even think about it. They're just the Packers. Go Pack, go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In my personal opinion, I think Dallas Renegades, Houston Rednecks. Roughnecks.
Nice.
That's probably gonna happen a lot, though, especially with Pastel on the show. So you don't get used to it.
And then the New York Guardians. Those are the 3 teams that got a home run off of this. They hit a home run. And then there's a couple of middle tier teams like Seattle Dragons, St. Louis Battlehawks, DC Defenders. I think they probably middle tier. Again, Tampa Bay Vipers. I like the.
He's having trouble even saying it. He doesn't even want to say it. The DC Defenders. That's just how I'm going to say it, because my animosity has grown so much since seeing that leak of the DC Sentinels. Like, just stab me in the heart. Kick me while I'm down. But we'll see. Go ahead.
I agree with you, Pasto. Actually, I thought Battlehawks, instead of middle tier, I think that was one of the top tier for me. I really liked the Battlehawks one. I thought they hit a home run on that one. That one was getting so much negativity on Twitter.
Yeah.
But then there were a couple of people like me who has stuck my neck out and was like, oh, you know what? I like that. Like, anything with a hawk I think is cool. I mean, I think it's different. And I like the different part of it.
I appreciate different. I appreciate outside the box. Is it a little cheesy? Probably. It's probably a little cheesy. So is Dragons. Dragons is cheesy. I think they
what? Dolphins is cheesy, Riley.
See, there we go. Okay.
Here we go. Now we're all getting hurt.
See, now that we've had time to grow and like get attached to the names, now we're starting to get all defensive.
Well, speaking of the Dolphins and speaking of the NFL, I know this weekend was a big weekend because we had NFL cuts. So what did you guys think about that? Did anything stand out to you?
I didn't see anything that that blew me away. There were a couple of players that I think have a lot of potential to go to the XFL and be kind of that tier one player. I wouldn't call them face, but they're going to be really, really productive players in the XFL. One of the guys that I thought was released maybe a little bit too early. And I don't know if he was a problem guy inside of the locker room, but I was really shocked to see Laquan Treadwell get released by the Vikings. Huge guy, 6'3", 215, former first-round pick out of Ole Miss. He was, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I think he is the career receptions leader at Ole Miss. Yeah. Physical freak, and I'm surprised that they got rid of him. And last year was the best year out of all 3 years that he had. He only had 32 catches. So I don't know if he's just not that productive of a player inside of what the Vikings are doing. But that was one name that really stood out to me as a guy who can come over.
He's a 9 route guy. That's what it's come out to, man. Apparently the word is he can run a great 9 route, and that's about it.
Is that like what we're going to get out of DK Metcalf? Is that just what Ole Miss produces?
Yeah.
Just 9 route guys? Yeah. I mean, I saw a graphic, Glass, that you bring up Treadwell. Also, Josh Dotson was cut, and I believe they were in the same draft class, both first-round picks. So both those guys don't make their squads, have been, completely underwhelming in their NFL careers. And then Michael Thomas is a second-round pick. He's now the highest-paid wide receiver in the NFL.
Monster.
Well, you take a look at that whole draft class, man. First-round pick, you had Will Fuller. Josh Dotson, like you said, and you look.
Will Fuller's been he's been a decent player.
He just can't stay healthy. That's the problem.
And there's another receiver in that draft class I'm not thinking of, but the second round picks you had Sterling Shepard, Tyler Boyd, and Michael Thomas. All 3 of those guys got second contracts when every first round pick have not yet.
Yeah, I'm not surprised on Dotson though, being a big Redskins guy. That first season, he was out the whole year with a foot, this mysterious foot injury that they couldn't figure out. And then years 2, 3, and 4, they didn't even give him that 5th-year option because he'd been such a botch. I mean, everything out of Redskins camp the past couple of years is, he catches everything. He's a physical freak and all of that, but they just couldn't get him. He couldn't get separation.
He never even had flashes.
No, he never did. And I just remember watching every post game. Dotson had 3 catches. This is what's going to turn him around. And he just never got it. So it doesn't surprise me. They tried to trade him. Nobody wanted him, so they released him. And I don't believe anybody's even got him on the waiver wire yet. So I'm not overly surprised.
I can say this. About 2 weeks before Redskins camp, I ran into Josh Dotson at a tropical smoothie here in Chantilly. And I got to say, if any XFL team is looking for him, he's a really nice guy. I talked to him for like 10 minutes. He's a
nice
awesome
guy
dude.
award. I like it.
So you won't say a bad word on this podcast about him.
I won't. He was
glad
really
you're giving honest takes. Yeah, we're giving honest takes.
He talked to me for about 10 minutes. He was a great dude.
Kenny's just used to this because every girl he talks to, he's like, well, you're a really good guy, Kenny.
So did you recognize him off the bat? Did you recognize him off the bat? Because, with football players, unless you're like a star quarterback, it could be hard, spotting someone in civilian clothes getting a smoothie.
It was weird, man. So actually, it's funny though. One of my friends I work with is a huge TCU fan, and so we're sitting there, and it's lunchtime, and I'm like, dude, I know this is gonna sound. And he had like Redskin swag on, like he had like this like Redskin performance clothing that I'd never seen before, and I was like, either he paid a lot of money for that, or he's part of the team.
And he's a big dude, right? Isn't he like 6'4" or something?
Yeah, he's a bigger guy. I think he's like 6'2". He was just, you could just tell, like, this guy was an athlete. Like, I looked at him and I was like, and then I kind of sat there and I was like, dude, he kind of looks like Josh Dotson. And so we Googled Josh Dotson and I pulled up his picture. I was like, sure enough. And then the lady calls his order. She's like, order for Josh. And I was like, that's him. I know that's him. So we went up there and kind of talked to him. He was a good dude, man.
I thought you were going to go rummaging through receipts or something, Did you see a Dotson
in here? You guys know where he's going to end up in the XFL, though, right? Since he's the ultimate nice guy, he's got to end up with the ultimate nice guy head coach in Jim Zorn in Seattle.
another Redskin great.
Oh, God.
Fierce Dragons. The Fierce Dragons of Jim Zorn, led by Jim Zorn and Josh Dotson out of the tunnel. Strike fear in your heart.
The other Redskin one I was surprised with, a Redskins pass that got released. Did you guys see Sua Cravens?
From the Broncos,
I think he was a 2nd or 3rd round pick from the Redskins. And obviously he was a problem guy with the Redskins. I mean, he sat there and quit after year 2. and then they trade him to Denver, and then he was still, I believe he had another year on his rookie deal, and Denver just cut ties with him. So I wonder if there's a lot more that we're just not hearing about, just kind of a problem child being in the locker room.
Well, not only that, he's had some head issues. Like I think he had multiple concussions at USC. He had multiple concussions with the Redskins. So, I mean, at what point is, he a hit away from ringing his bell and just being out for the year?
I mean, has he ever even really been that good, though? I mean, he's like one of those guys I kind of think, like, he's got the size, he's got the build, he's got that look. Like, he looks like a stud. But I haven't really seen the production out of him, at least in my opinion.
Let's correct me if I'm wrong, but he was one of the top defensive guys for the Redskins before he got hurt in his rookie season. Like, he was kind of a stud with him.
He was. I believe that was McLuhan's last year in DC, and they were trying to morph the defense into a lot more hybrids, and he was kind of the poster child for the hybrid guy. He wasn't necessarily a strong safety because he wasn't fast enough, but he was faster than kind of your standard will linebacker. So it's kind of this hybrid guy that they were going to use in a lot of different ways. And he really didn't turn out to be anything because he had a bunch of concussion issues.
Yeah.
So,
Pastel, did you see the Dolphins cut Isaiah Ford?
Yeah, that sucks, man. I thought he was going to make it in the NFL. I thought he had all the talent.
He's one of those guys that just needs a shot, man. Like, he's a playmaker. He's not going to blow you away with his speed. But what annoys me, and I'm going to try not to go into a Dolphins tangent here, but so they drop Isaiah Ford, then they immediately trade Kenny Stills to the Texans, opening up a roster spot for a wide receiver. I don't know if they're going to if he clears waivers, if they're going to try to get him back, because all the beat writers and everything I was hearing was Isaiah Ford's going to make this team. This guy is going to make the team. He's making plays in camp. He had a good preseason. He was obviously a huge playmaker at Virginia Tech. So if he clears waivers, if he gets onto a practice squad, he may be a guy that the XFL reaches out to. And I wanted to ask you guys about this because I'm not really clear on it. So if you sign, because we've seen did Jake Browning get cut and he signed to the practice squad? So if you sign to the practice squad, how is that going to work? Like, can the XFL, I mean, they're a different league altogether. So he would just be giving up his NFL contract to go play for the XFL if he chose that route? Or is it kind of like, sorry, I signed this practice squad contract, so the XFL just is kind of not an option now?
Yeah, kind of the way I read into it is if you are under contract with an NFL team, you are not allowed to play for another league unless you are given written permission from that team to go play in another league.
Including practice squad.
It's a guaranteed contract. So unless they're released, they cannot play with another team until the next calendar year, or not calendar year, but next football year. And that
when your contract is up.
Yeah.
I got to imagine, the NFL probably has some verbiage in their contracts that doesn't allow other leagues to poach their talent, like that are on active rosters or practice squad players. I mean, it's a smart thing to do. It makes business sense.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough then when we talk about tier one players. And if you are a rookie or a second-year guy and you have a guaranteed contract, be on a practice squad, and really you're only one hit away from being activated on a Sunday, and then you're on the 53, right?
Yeah.
So, they're going to have to get creative, and they're going to have to find a lot of these players that are over 3 years. It's a tough spot for the XFL in trying to find really great talent. That's NFL grade talent that's not going to be on a practice squad. It's going to have to be players that are in their third year or older.
And these NFL teams are moving so fast. Like, this process is going so quickly. Once cuts are made, you clear waivers, you sign back with a practice squad. Or you don't clear waivers and you sign with a different team. Like, this is happening in a matter of days. So the XFL has, little to no time to actually, reach out to these players and try to, convince them to invest in their league and get involved with what they're doing. Because the NFL process is just so boom, 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 and then all of a sudden you're on a practice squad.
Yeah, well, that's just it. I think they're letting the dust settle a little bit. That's why the draft is in October. So once the dust settles, these players find out if they're on a practice squad, if they're not on a practice squad. It gives them kind of a month to take in that news, digest it, and figure out if they want to do the XFL route or keep trying with the NFL route. So I think it's a smart move by the XFL.
And to be honest, if I'm an offensive lineman, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, or a running back, and I get put on an NFL practice squad, or if I had the option, if I say, hey, I got a XFL draft invite or a practice squad invite, whatever, or I'm going to get put, I would take the practice squad because those are high attrition positions in the NFL. And like Les said, you're one hit away at that point from being on a 53-man, making NFL minimum, which is like $700,000.
And Gless also brought up a good point. It depends on where in your career you are. If you're still on your first team and you just got cut and offered practice squad, you're a younger player, you need to ride that out because, like you said, especially if you're in one of those positions, the likelihood of you getting called up is far greater, and the amount of money that you can make is far greater. But if you're on like your second or third team and you've kind of gotten into this cycle, this vicious cycle, they're always looking for the younger guy to replace you.
Yeah, you're just not going to make it.
We saw it happen with
You're just not
Landry
good
Jones.
enough. Yeah.
Well, I think, and Gless brought this up earlier this morning when we were kind of talking offline, and I thought, and to be honest, I was like, wow, that's actually kind of a fantastic point because people from the outside might look and go, why is this guy still trying to make the NFL instead of playing in another league? And this is his, third, fourth year in the league. He's been cut a couple times, but if you get 3 years of accrued NFL service, you have health care for life. That's a big deal. Like so maybe that fourth year guy who's got 2 years of accrued NFL is like, hey, I just need one more season to get healthcare for life.
You know what? I didn't
point.
even think about that. That's an awesome point. That wasn't even the point I was trying to make, but I think
know, but yeah.
two and two together. I was just trying to point out, yeah, right?
Well, and as the XFL approach these players with what their healthcare package is, what are they offering in terms of healthcare? Because in the sport of football, that's a huge deal. And if you have the NFL offering that, you may want to stick it out with that.
Like you're just like, hey, I just need to make one 53-man roster one more time, and I've qualified for it. Like free healthcare provided by the NFL for the rest of my life.
It's an interesting choice.
That's a big motivator.
Obviously it's a first that the XFL is dealing with. So none of us really know, or the XFL or the players. Nobody really knows how this whole thing is going to go down. It'll be interesting to see when these other tier 1 quarterbacks are signed, if they do them before the draft or if they wait till later in the year. A guy that I know Kenny and you and I have been high on that got cut, Luke Falk. He's a guy that the XFL should target in our opinion. So how excited were you when you saw the Jets cut Luke Falk? I was a little surprised, to be honest with you.
I was surprised, but I mean, they cut Davis Webb. They cut him. Davis Webb, I think, ended up on the Bills practice squad now. So I was a little surprised, but I wasn't stunned. I'm really excited to see him get into the XFL because I think a lot of the concepts, a lot of the head coaches and the OCs in the XFL run are very similar to what Mike Leach ran at Washington State and that he thrived in at Washington State, kind of that air raid, run and shoot style offense. I think he could be a tremendous talent in the XFL.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kenny. I think you're going to see that kind of become the identity of the league over the first couple of years because there's so many of these air raid quarterbacks that can't hack it in the NFL for whatever reason, whether it's a system thing or whether they're just getting replaced by the same guy. I mean, you can see over time in a lot of these college football programs, you look at Washington State, you look at Texas Tech, you look at a lot of Big 12 quarterbacks, a lot of them don't make it. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's an arm strength thing or the inability to adapt to kind of a pro-style system. But if you look at the XFL head coaches and a lot of the offenses that they're bringing in, a lot of them are air raid, run and shoot guys. So that may end up being the identity of the league.
So we've had some other – go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Luke Falk, who isn't in the league anymore, and the guy who replaced Luke Falk, Gardner Minshew, is the backup in Jacksonville, but – who knows if he'll even last as the backup more than a year or two in Jacksonville.
Here's a real question, Kenny. Did Gardner Minshew survive that massive game 1 preseason hit he took? My goodness.
That was a rough game, but I was kind of impressed with the way he bounced back. Like, I was a little nervous after watching that game. I was like, this guy might not belong in the NFL, but he played well.
He's got balls of steel, man, to get back from that.
Yeah, and he did get to bounce back against the Dolphins the week after, so.
You got a little bit of a break there, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
I won't mention who your all's teams are because they're so highly respected in the NFL world.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? This is a pretty sad NFL group of fans right here.
Let's hope our DC teams turn out a little better than our NFL teams. Maybe that's why we're doing an XFL podcast. Maybe that's why we care so much about the XFL because I'm so sick and tired. I'm just stop.
You know you have crappy teams when the most exciting day of the football year is the draft day.
Ooh, we got 2 first-round picks. Too bad we can't draft. That's going to work out great.
What's great is if you look at all 4 of us and just the ownership groups of the 3 of the 4, like Cincinnati, DC, Miami. I'll give Kenny a break. Kenny's got a good owner, but our owner
Todd's
suck.
a great owner.
I mean, it's
yeah.
awful.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh Rosen. We're going to screw you again. We'll never know if you're good or not because you don't even have a left tackle anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
Who are some other Tier 1 quarterbacks that you guys potential Tier 1 quarterbacks that you guys saw? Paxton Lynch got cut. JT Barrett. Seahawks cut all of their quarterbacks, but I think they re-signed Geno.
Seahawks cut Geno. Was it who else?
JT Barrett.
Paxton Lynch and JT Barrett. They literally chose no quarterback over all of them. So if I'm Geno Smith that day, I got the news hey, you got cut, and I'm like, all right, well, who beat me out? And they're like, nobody. We actually chose nobody because you. But well, I know that Tier 1. I think
that's like when you apply for a job and you interview for it and you don't get it, and then you see that they repost the same job. What a gut punch!
Right. Here's what I'll say about Seattle, though, and I've listened to a lot of Seattle sports talk the past couple weeks because it's the Huskies and all that, and generally they marry the two together when they're talking sports up there. They were having a bear of a time getting down to 53. They had a couple linebackers that they wanted to keep. They drafted back-to-back inside linebackers in picks in rounds 3 and 4, and the way that it came down to, they weren't going to be able to keep them both. They had that. Wow. They had running back issues. They weren't sure if they're going to keep that. So it doesn't surprise me that they cut everyone because they simply didn't have enough spots. Like Shaquem Griffin, that was another guy, a great special teamer, but they can't seem to get him on the field besides playing special teams. So
I was going to ask, did he make the roster, Griffin?
I believe he did. Yes, he did. So it's like they only have 53 guys, and then they have 4 quarterbacks. Like you're not going to keep Barrett. Right, you're probably not going to keep Paxton Lynch, right? So you got to keep the next best guy that if Russ goes down, that somebody at least who has NFL playing experience. So it doesn't surprise me that they only kept 1 out of those 4, and
they brought back
4.
Geno. Yeah, they brought back Geno, and that was definitely like, hey, let's get down to 53 and see what we have. And then they brought Geno back, I think, as like a non-guaranteed contract, which is definitely a financial.
But you look at Paxton Lynch and JT Barrett, and those are the exact guys I'm talking about. Both are on their second team, I believe, at least their second team. JT may be on more than his second. But JT obviously he's not an NFL quarterback. He's undersized. He doesn't have the arm strength. Paxton Lynch, a former first-round pick, something's just not connecting. He can't get on the field. He was drafted to be the heir apparent to Peyton Manning. Didn't work out. Seattle couldn't even stay on the roster. But he's a high-profile name for people that know football. So he is that kind of guy. And Oliver Luck has mentioned Paxton Lynch by name. So those two could be guys that you target. Paxton Lynch maybe for a Tier 1. JT Barrett possibly for a Tier 1. We'll see how the other quarterbacks around the league shake out. What do you guys think of those two names?
I like JT Barrett a lot. I mean, you don't break multiple Big Ten records, multiple Drew Brees held records in the Big Ten and not be able to play quarterback. Yeah, he might not be an NFL quarterback, but I think there's definitely a spot for him kind of in that league where the talent is in between college and NFL talent. I think he can hold his own. Paxton Lynch, I'm not sold on. I mean, the guy did okay at Memphis. He was kind of there when Fuentes kind of had his offensive revolution at the school, and he had some really good talent around him at Memphis. And as we see now, that's a very friendly quarterback system with the guys who have followed, and a very high-powered offensive system with the skill players who have followed at Memphis as well. So I don't know if he's Tier 1. I think from a name perspective, he is former first-round pick, sure. But I just don't know skill-wise if he's that much more talented than JT Barrett, to be honest.
Yeah, I threw out some polls on the XFL Chalk Talk Instagram page, and so just going straight down it, Geno Smith, 60% of the poll said that he is a Tier 1 quarterback. For Kevin Hogan, they say 65% of fans think he's a Tier 1 quarterback. JT Barrett, straight down the middle, 50-50. So 50% of people don't think he is.
Interesting.
You mentioned Hogan. Looks like the Broncos cut both of my guys, which is a little bit surprising to me. I knew about Hogan. One of you guys told me before the show that Rippon got cut. So I don't know if they've signed to practice squads or whatnot. I don't know what their status is currently, but those are two guys that I've mentioned, and we've had our Kevin Hogan debate, so we'll stay away from that, Kenny. But in terms of name recognition, guys that are currently not on NFL rosters, are those people that you would target if you were the XFL?
I think you have to target them just from a talent perspective. I mean, those were guys that were just on the cusp. Also, by the way, I mean, that's another John Elway quarterback move. I mean, his record of picking guys is
it's unbelievably bad.
It's unbelievably bad. It's almost like the Michael Jordan, being in the NBA with the Wizards and picking Kwame Brown, right? I mean, it's a lack of understanding today's quarterback. Maybe I don't know, because I think Hogan can do a lot of really great things, especially in a system like Pep Hamilton, which that's what he played at Stanford. So I think it makes a lot of sense there. From a talent perspective, it's been so long since I've seen him play, so it's hard to see where he's at. Brett Rippon, obviously a younger guy, huge arm from Boise State. I would think with anybody with arm talent that you need to have him in the league. Surprised that he hasn't been picked up as a practice guy squad.
I would love to see either of those guys in Pep Hamilton's system. I think Brett Rippon would be amazing. Obviously, the name recognition is there around the D.C. area, being the nephew of a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Redskins. And then Kevin Hogan, he's from D.C., and Pep Hamilton, I think he may have coached him 1 year, and then Pep went to the Colts. But I know, like you said, he ran the same essential system that Pep Hamilton ran. So we would be familiar with that. So I think both those would be ideal guys for Pep Hamilton in DC.
Well,
go ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gless. Go ahead, Gless.
I think where I struggle with Tier 1, and we had this conversation offline this week, is what is our definition of Tier 1 quarterbacks to what is the XFL's definition of Tier 1, right? Like what we think is top quarterback talent, it really all depends on who's available, right? Like Paxton Lynch is not a Tier 1 guy. Well, I mean, based on the lot of quarterbacks to pick, he may be a Tier 1 guy. Right? There's really not a whole lot to choose from.
But there's only 7 slots. You've already taken one for Landry Jones. But, like, what if there's a quarterback that they're targeting? They have to be careful with who they're signing, because once you sign a Tier 1 guy, you can't just cut him, can you? You can't just be like, sorry, dude, we found somebody better. Tim Tebow decided he wanted to play football again. You're out, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have to be careful if they're targeting some quarterbacks that, like a Tim Tebow that may not be in the league. They're trying to get him out of baseball. You don't want to fill up any slots, and then Tim Tebow decides, hey, I want to play football again. And then you're like, well, enter our draft.
Yeah,
we'll pay you $60,000.
I really don't see it being a problem, them getting these Tier 1 QBs. I mean, we just mentioned a few: J.T. Barrett, Paxton Lynch, Kevin Hogan. I mean, Cardell Jones. Cardell Jones played pretty well this preseason.
He had a good preseason.
He had a really good preseason, and that's a guy we haven't heard about in like 3 years, because he had like 2 good games in Ohio State, and I mean, he might be good. We just don't know. He hasn't played enough. Yeah. So like this,
Kenny apparently knows. Kenny knows.
Kenny
hasn't seen him play at all, but he knows.
Well, here's my problem. I don't, and I get what Gless was saying is like, what's the definition of a Tier 1 quarterback? I just don't know. Like, his whole career is based off of 3 games. Now, granted, they're very high-profile games, and I get that. I'm not taking that away from him. He played well in the Big Ten title game. He played well in the college football playoff game, and he played well in the national title. Like, I get it. Those are 3 massive games for a third-string quarterback. But then he lost to Virginia Tech the next season. The opener got benched and has never played again. Like, so I mean, I just don't understand how that's a Tier 1 guy. How you put all your eggs in that basket.
He came back with the same 2 quarterbacks that were starting before him on the team again. It's not like he just lost the job to some schmuck that came in.
Well, no, Braxton got moved to receiver, so really he had to battle out J.T. Barrett, and he beat him out, but then he got benched during that Virginia Tech game and never played another.
But J.T. Barrett he's amazing though. J.T. Barrett's amazing.
I think Cardell was a product of having Ezekiel Elliott and Michael Thomas as your skill players that year more than he was that good of a quarterback.
This goes back to that argument. If you're in one of these kinds of programs like Ohio State and Alabama, you're going to have talent around you. So why does that deter you? Oh, because he had Michael Thomas to throw to, he's still a scrub. But J.T. Barrett's throwing to the same guy, but he's good.
But J.T. Barrett did it better than Cardell did, in my opinion. Cardell didn't show up the next year. He lost his job because he couldn't compete with J.T.
Yeah, I guess the way I just see it, though, is he's been in the NFL for, 3 years now, 2 years?
3 years?
Yeah, so he's good enough to stay on an NFL team. Like, he can't be that bad, and the coach not see that every day.
Do you think name recognition-wise, though, do you think that he is a guy that people would know. Like if the XFL tweeted, "We have signed Cardale Jones as a tier 1 quarterback," do you think that would get some buzz because people remember those 3 games because they're so high profile?
Of course.
So
he's a
isn't that what the
quarterback? Yeah.
Isn't that what the league wants?
I think that's what they want, but ultimately they need good talent too. I mean,
what's the line? Where's the line? That's where we got it. We don't know that answer, but the line is what's the line between marketing and actual on the field product?
Correct.
Right, because if it was all marketing, I mean, Johnny Manziel would be the biggest name that they would bring back. But as we've discussed before on this podcast, we just don't know if Manziel's talent is even there anymore. I mean, just gets cut from the CFL. Did he even play? I think he played 1 game for the Memphis Express before the AAF.
Yeah, he played like 3 quarters.
Yeah, no, it's that fine line, and we don't really know what the fine line is because we don't know what the amount of quarterback talent that's going to be available yet, right?
Yeah.
The other name that comes to mind is a guy named Taylor Henke, guy from ODU. He set records at ODU. Local guy. He's a guy. I think he was there at ODU when they went Division One. I think he was there that first year that they went Division One. He set records at ODU. He backed up. Tavares Jackson.
Cam.
No, he backed up Cam, but he was in Minnesota first. He was the backup in Minnesota.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then he went back to Cam for a couple of years, got some playing time last year. And then again, just, we've talked about this offline, but the NFL quarterback economy is so cutthroat, right? This is a guy who has great arm strength. Look, you don't come out of ODU and don't make NFL rosters for 3 years if you don't have some sort of talent. So I think he's another guy that you can look at as a tier 1 quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like a trend now. It's like you try these guys out, like Cardale Jones, like the quarterback you just mentioned for ODU. If they don't kind of make it in 2 or 3 years, it's like on to the next guy, like an Easton Stick for San Diego, kind of like a new experiment. So I think that's where the XFL is going to make their money for like those 3rd, 4th year players, not necessarily the 1st and 2nd year players.
Yeah, I mean, and quarterbacks dominate what we're talking about. But honestly, guys, I do want to mention this. There's 4 guys I wrote down that, to me, are interesting non-quarterback pickups, and that's David Sills, the wide receiver from West Virginia.
Ooh, great name right
that's
there.
A great
I like that
name,
one. That's a
Jimmy.
great one.
He got cut by the Bills. TJ Roming, who's a wide receiver the Dolphins just cut. He's a very Jamison Crowder-like player, and I know it's cliche to use that as an example because he was teammates with Jamison Crowder, but he took that role over for Jamison. So I like him a lot. Scooby Wright, linebacker, Pats just cut, who was a big-time linebacker for Arizona in college, and Shane Ray, former first-round pick by the Broncos, Super Bowl-winning Broncos that year. So just some interesting names that would bring some recognition and possibly some extra talent in other positions.
I agree. I love the David Sills name that you brought up there. That guy was a stud at West Virginia. He's just throw it up and he'd go get it. I mean, it was a reason it was a big reason why Will Greer threw up so many like Madden-like numbers up there at West Virginia. That's a great name, Ken. I'm glad you brought him up.
Well, and hey, you remember he was famous because he was recruited. He was like a quarterback in middle school, and that was
commit to USC. Lane Kiffin, right?
Lane Kiffin offered him a scholarship when he was like in 7th grade to play quarterback at USC.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm still a little bitter because West Virginia beat my James Madison Duke Dogs this past weekend.
That was a close game, though.
Yeah,
I'm seeing here Braxton Miller. Was he released?
He was cut. Yeah.
Has he been signed by anybody?
I don't think so. I think he was signed by the Browns to play that 4th preseason game, just kind of as like, hey, we don't want anybody we want on the team getting hurt, so we're going to sign him.
That was a guy that you were kind of eyeing, weren't you, Kenny?
Yeah, I would love to see him as a receiver in the XFL. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Texans, and he just kind of has failed to stick around. I think he's been nicked up and had some injuries. He's an explosive athlete. I'd love to see what he could do in the XFL.
He'd also bring a lot of name recognition as well, right?
We keep talking about
name recognition, but
it sounds like XFL is going to be Ohio State University all over again.
Kenny would not mind that, would you, Kenny?
No, I'd be okay with it. I like Ohio State.
Did Josh Johnson make the Lions? No. He was the overall number 1 pick in the AAF.
Yes, I believe he did. Yes.
What is he, like 39?
Dude, he's been on like 15 different NFL teams.
Dude, Jim Harbaugh was his head coach at San Jose State. That's how long ago he played.
Or San Diego University.
Yeah, sorry, San Diego.
He won a game. He won a couple games for the Skins last year, right down the stretch when we lost.
Well, that's why, he never played a snap.
Right?
He was the first overall pick in the AAF. Never played a snap because the Redskins signed him immediately after.
Since 2008, he's played for the Bucks, the Niners, the Sacramento Mountain Lions in the UFL, Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, the 49ers again, the Bengals again, the Jets, the Colts, the Bills, the Ravens, the Giants, the Texans, Raiders, Redskins, and now the Lions. He's been around.
It would have been a shorter list going through the teams he did not play for.
He likes to travel.
Exactly. Yeah. He's got some good travel miles for sure.
Kenny, he's like the Edwin Jackson of NFL quarterbacks. Just playing for 15 different teams,
Yeah.
You got to respect it, though, because he jumped from leagues. Like, he wasn't, what was that? Was that an arena team, or what was that team that you mentioned?
The United Football League, the Sacramento
They were around for
Mountain
2
Lions.
years, right? They had a team in Norfolk. They had the Destroyers. You remember that?
Hey, which, by the way, that Marty Schottenheimer won the title with them.
He did, yes. Yep. That's right.
I mean, it just shows that these leagues work, that he's able to go be, the NFL is vicious. If he didn't have that opportunity, he probably would not have gotten that next NFL opportunity. Just like the AAF, you have guys like Garrett Gilbert, Dearness Johnson, who are on the Apollos and shine for the Apollos. Both of them made the Browns. So you have these alternative leagues serve a purpose. You get game reps, you get the film. So, I mean, they're viable options for these players. I just, with the tier that the XFL is trying to get, they say they're not competing with the NFL, but in some respects they are competing with the NFL for these lower tier quarterbacks that you recognize more than AAF guys, but you're competing with practice squads and third stringers.
Gles, what's crazy to me is that Scooby Wright has yet to catch on to an NFL team, and the guy was a unanimous All-American. He won the Bronco Nagurski Trophy and the Lombardi Award and the Chuck Benderek Award all in 2014. Like, the guy was the best defensive player all world in college in 2014, and just because of a bad combine, he's never really been able to recover.
Yeah, it can't be a physical thing, right? Is he a nightmare in the locker room? I don't get it. It doesn't make much sense to me.
No, from all reports, he's a pretty standout dude. Like, he's not a bad guy. It's just, for some reason, he's just failed to stick on anywhere. I don't get it.
He's the guy that looks like Thor, right?
Yeah.
Like the long hair. Yeah.
Yep. So he was in the AAF. He played for the Hot Shots. But it's just weird. He just hasn't been able to stay with the team. And apparently he had a really strong camp in preseason for the Patriots.
Well, I think this stands out to me. What it screams to me, and this is what will kind of differentiate the XFL from the AAF, is now that there's been this long kind of lull of, hey, the XFL is coming, and there's a clear schedule where they're going to have a training camp. They're going to have about a month and a half of preparing, right? So that you come out and you do give good football. And that was one of the things that the AAF didn't do well. And so when you get a lot of these guys that do have talent, and maybe they played in preseason and they'll have a month or two off, and then they'll be back into it and get back into game shape. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think they're doing it right to get guys that are, they haven't been sitting on their couch for 6 months.
The draft in October.
Back into game shape.
Drafts in October. They're having team mini camps at the end of the year, end of November into December, and then January they're having full-fledged training camps. And I believe, from what I've heard, they're not just bringing in guys and having a training camp and getting the team ready. They're bringing in more players than roster spots. So the XFL is going to have cuts. So there's going to be a level of competition there, which I think is fantastic. So you'll have guys coming in. I think, have you guys heard that they're all the training camps are going to be in a central location? They're all going to be in Texas. I think Dallas.
I would imagine they got to be in a warm weather place come December and January. Like, you're not going to want to hold training camp in New York.
Yeah. So you're going to bring in more guys. You're going to make roster cuts. So they're really doing their due diligence of bringing in the best quality football players that they can. And even when they bring those players in that they've done all of this scouting work on, they're even from there cutting it down to what you're going to see on the field. And, with a new alternative league, it's gonna be rocky. It's you're bringing these guys in. Even 2 months is just not enough time.
Yeah.
So it's going to be rocky. It's going to be one of these things where, as we go through the season, just like the AAF, the football got better and better every week. Except now with the XFL, it's going to get better and better every week with players that are higher quality players that you recognize names more than you did in the AAF. You don't have to quite go into the depths of Google to find who these guys are. You know what I'm saying? So I think the XFL is doing their due diligence the right way.
Yeah, you're right. And honestly, once people know this league's going to be around for a while and it has some like sustainability power, then players like the college players, those transfers like we talked about previously, those guys are going to make that jump to the XFL. And the better talent's going to develop over the years once they can trust that this league's going to stay around.
Yeah, I mean, the league's funded for 2 years, so 100% it'll be 2 years. It'll make it 2 years. Like Vince took out enough WWE stock and it started Alpha Entertainment and said the league is fully funded for 2 years. So, well, we at least got it for that long.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen a list? I haven't seen one out. When I'm on Twitter, I see occasional players tweeting out that they got an invitation. Is there like an official list that the XFL has released yet? Has anybody seen that? I'd be interested to see what that looks
some
like.
Websites, I think XFL Board is keeping track of it. I don't know if the XFL themselves has a list that you can access at this point. I think as we get closer to October, you'll see a list of all the people eligible for the draft that have accepted.
Yeah.
Because just because you get a draft invite doesn't mean you have to accept it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if by next week's show we're going to have a list of what that draft pool is going to look like. Because, I mean, now the NFL cuts have ended, this is when everyone starts getting the invites from the XFL that we're on an NFL team training camp.
Yeah, it's been more like independent lists that I've seen that someone's put together, and they've been scouring like players' social medias who have posted, because there could be guys who have gotten invitations and they just either don't have a social media or they haven't posted on social media. So a lot of that stuff's just been self-reported, like, hey, I got an invite.
Yeah, that's where I think it was smart for them to do it in October, right? Because even after NFL cuts, you're going to have these first 4 games where there's going to be some injuries happen, and there may be a guy or two that's not on a practice squad that's still holding out for a chance to either be signed to a practice squad or because of injuries, they get brought right in, right? Because there's already film out there on them. So that's why I think they do have it right.
Yeah, and you'll have guys coming off of like suspension, like Golden Tate will be back in 4 games,
Nick
so
Chubb.
they'll have to cut somebody.
Cream Hunt.
Cream Hunt.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll have to cut people to make room for them on active rosters. So, yeah, it's a very good point, Gless. I think October is kind of a perfect time for that.
When can we expect that Terrell Owens tweet? When is that going to come? Because it's going to come, right? I'm ready. He's gonna be doing sit-ups in his driveway.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm ready, guys.
I'm
ready, Bob. Sign me up, Bob Stoops.
Oh god, he's gonna come back. Michael Vick's gonna come back. Jerry Rice is gonna come back.
I think that's what they're trying to avoid, but
I know
it would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It'd be fun to watch, honestly. But I just hope that's not their talent pool at this point.
I don't think it will.
The real question with Terrell Owens is he's going to get the invite, right? So he'll get the invite, but is he going to show up like he refused to show up for his Hall of Fame induction? Like what?
Yeah, he did it from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
We're on to something now. He's going to use the XFL as a platform just to bash the NFL. He's not even interested in playing football anymore. He just needs a microphone on ABC, on ESPN, on Fox to just trash the NFL at every opportunity. This is what you're missing, NFL.
Here's I think a legit question for everyone, and I want to preface this by saying in no way do I think Andrew Luck will ever play in the XFL. It'll never happen. I don't support that conspiracy theory. I don't endorse it.
Just say it.
But
I agree with you, Kenny. Please go ahead.
Think he's? Well, I hate seeing that pop up everywhere. He's going to play for his dad. But do you think he's going to take like a front office position or a coaching position or some sort of coaching internship or anything in the XFL with? Like, I mean, I think it is tough to ignore that there is a connection there with his dad. And he's obviously not going to play anymore, but I could see him being a coaching or front office type guy because let's face it, he's got a degree from Stanford. He's not a dumb individual.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the connection. I think he's not doing anything this year. Let's just be clear on that. Like the publicity and then the media would just slam him if he did anything this year.
But what do you mean by this year? This NFL season? Because
this NFL or XFL year. So within the 2019-2020 calendar year, I can't see him doing anything.
I mean, would they really slam him though if he's just sitting in a front office or just helping out with the league? I mean, if he came as a player, that would be.
I think it would be split. I think it would be split. I think you'd see some obvious, okay, well, that makes sense. His dad works there. It makes sense for him to work within the front office. Like, I get that. But I think you'd also hear, like, well, this, is he really that burnt out? Like, he said he was burnt out. He said he was tired, all this stuff. And now all of a sudden, 4 months later, he's running a front office position somewhere. Like, I think it could be a 50-50 split in terms of positive and negative headlines.
Well, I think he was burnt out from the physicality of football. He wasn't burnt out with football in general.
But still, that PR. The media about it. I mean, he just would have got slammed out, in my opinion, with the media.
Yeah.
Because people, what Kenny just said, they would have said the same thing. Whether it's fair or not, it would have happened.
Agreed.
Yeah, he's burnt out from the continuous cycle of rehabbing this, rehabbing that. And, I mean, you can only blame the Colts for the lack of offensive line he had for the first, 5 or 6 years of his career. But like Gless said, is he really burnt out from the game of football? If you had asked me, like, up until he actually retired, what NFL player do you think loves football the most? Andrew Luck would have been one of the first guys that popped into my head. And then he's saying that he's burnt out from football.
I don't think he's burnt out from football, the mental part of it. As far as his passion for the game, it's the physicality that just wears down on you. So I agree that I don't think he'll come to the XFL this year. But in saying that, it's such a natural fit for him to either work on a coaching staff for the XFL if he wanted to do something fun. I mean, he's not going to be a guy in shortage of options. He's a smart dude. He's a guy with a lot of name recognition. Heck, he graduated from Stanford. Stanford's the #1 university for tech startups, right? I mean, he can go out in Silicon Valley and
can do
be
anything
a board
he
member
wants.
for some tech company. Yeah, he could do whatever he wants. The world's kind of his oyster. Now, it makes a ton of sense for him to work underneath Pep Hamilton as the offensive coordinator, which I would love.
Here we go.
Now we're talking, but I don't know if that'll necessarily happen. I would love it from the PR perspective for the XFL, as that's just another star power. But I don't know if he'll do that this year. I don't think he will. I think he kind of wants to get away, enjoy life. But to Kenny's point, he is in no shortage of options.
Hey guys, my phone's blowing up from all this hurricane evacuation stuff and everything. It sounds like it's just intensified along the East Coast, so they're trying to evacuate all my soldiers. So the role
make sure all your windows are closed.
Yeah,
Lock your stuff up.
The commander is asking me to go attend to this right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for next week's show. Hopefully we have a lot more fidelity on what players are going to be in the XFL draft. Because it's just going to pick up from here, guys. It's going to be a fun off season.